Thank you very much. Let me start with the issue raised by Dada. The evidence in memorial is a number of exhibits. If you see the amount of papers, over 1,000 pages of the memorial, the evidence include incidences where children were shot when they were just walking in the streets, the attacks on hospitals. It's a number of this. The evidence is available on the ICJ website, and what we've submitted, you can go then and download. Whether we had assistance from international parties, the rule is that we need to submit our own memorial, and the parties that have opted to join and support South Africa will then file supporting memorials like in all other cases, and so that is the approach. Let me go to the issue around the food contamination. It's both the issue that is raised by, I didn't get his name, but Kraiber, I got your name. The issue around whether there is a special cabinet. There is work that we are doing in the ministerial committees to make sure that work is done. In the statement, we have indicated the work that has been done by the Interministerial Committee on Disaster Management. Also, the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster, it continues to do work to prepare for the President's address, and as the overall committee responsible for the net joints work, there is no discussion of deploying the military as in terms of sponsorship. In terms of work that is underway, we think between ourselves as the security cluster outside of the defense, we have capacity to handle what has to be handled. The President will address. I do not want to preempt when, given the work that is still being done by the committees. I'm aware that this JCPS Ministerial Committee is going to meet again this afternoon. We met yesterday. We're going to meet again this afternoon to just finalize the issues in preparation. So depending on the various aspects and the various committees that are working, if you've seen the work that is being done by provinces, including in particular province of Limpopo and Gauteng, when that all work that is integrated back into the joint effort, the President will be able to address. If we complete that work with sufficient time today for the President to address, he will address today or tomorrow, but he will address within this week the nation in terms of the integrated manner of work. Then whether the special cabinet, of course, we'll have to go and account if there's multiple committees that are working. We'll have to go into a special cabinet. Whether that special cabinet will sit today or tomorrow or any other day within the week is still up in the air, depending on the completion of work of the various ministerial committees that are working. But when cabinet has met, we'll then notify that cabinet has met. And fortunately for me, I will not be the one doing the briefing. The President will then address the nation. So that's how you're going to get the briefing from that specifically on the issue. On the issue around the SRD grant, that is the Dandel, not Dandel. I think we are confusing ourselves intentionally. The Minister of Finance has announced that this SRD, there was going to be, remember the MTDPS makes provision for the next financial year. He indicates that the next financial year, which is the 2025-2026 financial year, there is provision for the SRD grant. But work continues to be underway, not from finance only, but also the Department of Social Development. There's an interministerial committee, I think, that is, or a team that is working on the sustainable intervention measures, whether we go the basic income grant route or we then go to an alternative mechanism. And that is what confuses people. We, as government, we accept that the SRD grant remains an essential intervention. But that intervention may not be sustainable, even the people are saying it's not enough. So what is the best sustainable measure? So we continue to engage with that. Until we find a replacement solution, the Minister of Finance will have to continue to make an intervention, and that is the focus. So we should not confuse work that is being done to find more sustainable intervention with the continuation of the SRD grant. I think that's what we need to clarify, because there's that confusion. And in terms of the SABC bill, the SABC bill is not a bill of, is not a private member's bill. It's not Minister Malatsi's bill. It's a bill of cabinet and the executive. So in terms of the law, he cannot withdraw it without coming to cabinet to agree for his withdrawal. That bill was submitted to cabinet after it was approved by cabinet. It was submitted to Parliament after it was approved to Cabinet. The Cabinet Secretariat and the Leader of Government's business will deal with that matter in the next Cabinet meeting. Because there's no minister, even myself, I can't withdraw any bill which has been approved by Cabinet, unless I've tabled a bill. Remember, they are private members' bill. Unless as Khumbudzo Ntshavheni have tabled a bill. Whatever the limitations the minister may find in the bill, he must come and convince Cabinet to say there are these limitations in the bill, and for this reason, this is the amendments I want to make in the bill, and therefore I'm requesting Cabinet to concur with me to withdraw that bill. So it was not discussed in Cabinet, and it's not his bill. It's what we call an executive bill. So we are very clear on in terms, and the rules and the laws are very clear on how that gets treated, and we are going to address it as such. And then, which one? Should I start with the U.S. elections or the Mozambique elections first? Okay. I'm flipping. Let me start with the U.S. We have indicated as South African government that we relate with the U.S. government. It doesn't matter whether which administration is in place. Our relationship, our trade relationship is with the government of the day. And we continue to engage with the government of the day on issues, whether they are trade issues or whether they are other diplomatic related issues. Our view is that our participation in AGOA is anchored by the value that South Africa adds in the AGOA process, and how its participation adds value for American businesses and the American economy. So that is the position we maintain. So it will depend on when the administration changes, what engagements they want to have with us on that AGOA. But our posture is that AGOA is not a singular way beneficial to South Africa and African countries. It's also very beneficial to the American economy and American businesses. And every country works in the interest of its own national interest, and any U.S. administration will work in its own interest. We don't have a view of what will be the foreign policy of the U.S. government under President Trump when he comes into office around Gaza and Palestine. And we don't believe that it's a view that South Africa must have. Our responsibility as South Africa is to continue to engage and lobby countries of the nation, including the USA, to support the position that we hold. How they take it, it's a question beyond our control, and therefore we don't want to express a view on that. It remains the decision of the US how they'll relate to the issues of Russia, Ukraine, and Gaza, Palestine, Israel vis-a-vis the Palestinians. But our view is that we must articulate and engage them on the policies. You know, we've deployed an ambassador in the US, in Washington. Ambassador is Ibrahim Rasool, to continue to engage. That's why we are very active in those engagements. On the Mozambique issues, I think we need to be very clear on the following. There were elections in Mozambique. SADC sent a mission, the AU sent a mission, a number of entities sent a mission. SADC and the AU, and I'm talking about those bodies because they are bodies that South Africa is a member to. They released a report on how they deemed the elections, and in the bulk of the SADC report, the provisional report of SADC, and the provisional report of the AU, they indicated that the elections, despite few hitches, they were generally free. There was no violence in Mozambique during the elections. There were no incidents of violence or intimidation reported during the elections, which is the voting. Mozambique, like South Africa, like Botswana, like the USA, they've got a mechanism and a system of disputing elections. The problem in Mozambique started when the provisional elections were issued by the Electoral Committee. And it is the view of South Africa that all parties that are not happy with the elections outcome, who are disputing, like we had in our own case in South Africa, we had parties that lodged disputes, including not only to the IEC, but they went as far as the Electoral Court. The incitement of violence by an aggrieved party is not acceptable, because it will mean we will not have elections in any country in this continent where there's a party that is not dissatisfied, because then we'll all incite violence and want to change the electoral outcome through violence. The parties in Mozambique must submit their grievances and their evidence of displeasure or dissatisfaction through the Constitutional Council and allow the Constitutional Council to adjudicate on the matter. There's a period allowed for the Constitutional Council to adjudicate on the matter. We are concerned by the incidences of violence, and we want to call on all parties in Mozambique, in particular the ones who are inciting violence, not to incite violence because they are setting a wrong precedence. Democracy must work even when it works against you. And as a minister in the government of national unity coming from the ANC component, imagine if the ANC was dissatisfied and called for violence in this country, having achieved 40% of the vote. What would have happened? So we must take it from that point that if we allow parties, because they are not happy with provisional elections, even without exhausting the dispute resolution mechanism, then they can then incite violence. The parties must make their submission, and in line with the constitutional or the regulations that are set in those countries, like the regulations that are set in our countries to dispute elections and get those elections adjudicated. Imagine if in Botswana, President Masisi and his party did not also accept the outcome of the elections and called for violence from the people of Botswana. What would have happened? Before President Botswana or Masisi, imagine if President Khama also called for violence in Botswana. What would have happened? We cannot continue to plunge our continent because we don't like the party that has won, and there's a narrative out there against the party that has won. We cannot allow any contender to election in the SADC region in the African continent, where we are starting to build democratic government and holding consistent and continuous predictable elections, to let parties who are dissatisfied plunge us. We have listened to the calls by the security establishments of Mozambique that they are in control of keeping peace. We have engaged through diplomatic channels to make sure that there is no disproportionate use of force against those who are demonstrating. We have also observed and engaged to say those who are protesting must do it without destruction of property, because everybody has a right to protest. But South Africa is not the chairperson of SADC, neither is the chairperson of the SADC Troika. South Africa is not a big brother within SADC or the African continent. So we subject ourselves to the protocols of SADC and will await the SADC meeting, the Troika meeting that is established, that has been convened. I think it's for the 21st, if not the 20th of November, to meet and explain and discuss their own report and the way forward. As the neighboring country to Mozambique, we are concerned about the spillage of if Mozambicans flee from their own country. That's why our border management authority and our law enforcement authorities continue to engage with their counterparts to make sure that we've got minimum harm in the economy of this country, but also to make sure that Mozambicans do not feel threatened in their own countries to flee to neighboring countries, which South Africa will be the major receiving country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Paul, is it there for
just a clarification?
Yes.
So, Minister, it would be fair to say that people in Mozambique, you're telling them to follow the example of South Africa and Botswana, which have had peaceful elections. Would that be a fair summary of what you're saying?
Excuse me?
Sorry, can you hear me? So would it be fair to summarize what you're saying is that the people of Mozambique should follow the example of peaceful elections in Mozambique and South Africa? Not Mozambique, Botswana and South Africa.
That is very fair, to follow the dispute resolution mechanism set in place. Because if you are not happy with the dispute resolution mechanism set in place, you cannot then complain about it after the fact. They should have raised a complaint against the dispute resolution mechanism set in place before, and within as the participants in the constitutional structure, including the Parliament of Mozambique. We need to become a region and a continent that set rules and play by the rules, no matter when those rules do not favor us. Thank you.